Hey everyone, welcome back to Devs in the Sheds. Yes, I've got the right Paul. We were having difficulties with cameras in the background, and Paul was showing up multiple times. So I clicked the one that's live and moving. Welcome back to Devs in the Sheds. As you can see, I'm in my cabin today. It is 0 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius in Melbourne today. So I think that's like 30 Fahrenheit for anyone
Negative.
joining in from America.
Yeah.
It's pretty cold. It's like ice points. So I've got air conditioning here. I think Paul and Aaron are set up in their houses this week.
I
But
don't have
generally
a
we
heater
are.
in my workshop.
I don't have air conditioning on, especially when it's cold, Matt. And
I need it.
actually,
I'm from New Zealand and I don't like cold. That's why I'm in Australia now.
but you said air conditioning. That's typically related to keeping the temperature down,
But
not
it
up.
can
So
be
you mean a
reverse
heater?
cycle heater as well. Yeah, heating, air
Yeah,
conditioner
that's
can do
right.
heating
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, it does have a heat setting, and you can see I've got it at 22 degrees Celsius. It's a little bit blurry, but yeah, it's on heat. Yeah, so usually we do this from our sheds. We've got lots of IoT things, as you can see in the background. We talk about software engineering, software development. This week we have Murty, so very happy to have you on the show, Murty, alongside Aaron, Paul, and myself. Um, in ways of introductions, Aaron and Paul are on the solution architecture side of AWS. I am on the technical accounts manager side. Murty, do you want to give us like a 10-second spiel on yourself?
Yeah. So hey everyone, I'm Murthy Chapati, Partner Solutions Architect. I'm based in Sydney. I've been with Amazon for 3 years. I work closely with GSI partners. Pretty much I help them with the definition of technical strategies, go-to-market solutions, basically to create solution offerings on AWS. And I'm also APJ advocate for AI for DevOps focus area. And yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, Matt.
Nice. And
Murty,
GSI.
let
I'm a,
me jump in for a second because we've got Aaron and I have got I think we're twinsies today with the Tech Fest. But Murty has an extremely unique hoodie, and I've seen it before.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
ordered it before. But tell us about that hoodie.
Yeah, so
Nice.
as part of that TFC, we call a technical field community, right? So that's I'm part of the Builder Experience TFC. I had an opportunity to go to Washington, DC to meet all my, like community, the family of AI for DevOps focus area, and also wider focus areas like, the DevOps, the Builder tools, Amplify, CDK. Yeah, it was an awesome meet. The first time I traveled after 2 years after COVID, and yeah, I met like 200, 300 people. So yeah, so I got this hoodie from the product team. So yeah, but Paul, I have one extra one. I'll give it to you. So not
oh no.
exactly the
Well, I mean, I have been called by Matt before the what do you call me, Matt? The
The
swag
swag
monster.
goblin.
The swag goblin, yeah.
Yeah, like treasure
I-
goblin from video games like Diablo.
Treasure Goblin.
Yeah.
That's it. Treasure
Yeah.
Goblin.
I just had to say I'm especially excited for Murdy today because this is the first time we've actually had a guest who is from both the same team as me. So Murdy and I are both GSI and also the same TFC as me. So Murdy and I are also both Builder Experience. Not to disclude you, Matt. Obviously we're the same TFC, but from the same SA team as well. So I'm super excited to have another GSI SA on with us today.
I was going to ask for the audience, what's GSI? Because I know most people work in companies. They might not have heard the term GSI before, right?
GSI stands for Global Systems Integrators, and that's generally your large global organizations such as PwC, Accenture, Deloitte, all of the really large consulting scalers who work directly with AWS.
Excellent, nice. And the only other thing I was going to say is Murty. I needed to get to America, obviously, to get swag, because when we did our little field community event for Builder Experience people in AWS, it's kind of just like an SME group for people in the chat. When we did that, we didn't actually get any swag, and I think Paul and myself and even Aaron were talking about that. So it sounds like we need to go to Seattle to load up the freebies.
Also, you need to be quick because
I will
generally they
be-
just put it in the corner and they just disappear. So yeah, you need to have
I
your
will
ears.
be I will be in Seattle in 2 weeks' time, Matt. So I will try and bring back swag to you and Paul. as much as I can fit in my suitcase on the way back. So.
Is there any chance of getting like a couple of extras for anyone in the audience? Maybe we can hand some out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure everyone kind of wants a Code Guru or something. Jumper, hoodie. Like what do we call that in America? So in Australia, it's like sweatshirt or hoodie.
I'm not sure. I think hoodie is the same thing, right? But I don't think jumper is recognized in the US.
Yeah,
I know when I lived there, they didn't know what I was talking about.
Yep.
So.
Excellent, and good to see everyone in the chat. Like Mookie Monkey, great to see you again. One of the regulars. It's always cool to see you in here and commenting on everything. Welcome to H Doslo. We've got Tumbles on here, Rhodesy, you to NG. I'm probably like destroying a lot of these names, so don't judge me, but it's great to see everyone on. Before we get into it, so today's session is going to be around machine learning in the DevOps space, and we're going to talk about a service called Amazon Devops Guru in particular. Very, very close cousin to Code Guru, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
So Murdy's going to be covering that. We did have a few announcements that I thought would be interesting for everyone to... Jumper isn't used, so it is hoodie in America. Cool. And we've got someone from Vegas.
It's very interesting that their name is Tumblers as well. We talked about it a couple of times, but I must bring that rock tumbler on that I've integrated with Monitron. So Tumbler reminded me of that. We'll set that up for a future session. But back to your announcements, Matt, because I have one specifically as well that ties very well into this.
Cool. I will be very fast because I want to spend most of the time on Devops Guru. My screen should come up in 1 second. Here we go. So I'll paste links in the chat for everyone to have a read in a second. But SAM Accelerate is now generally available. So as you know, AWS SAM is for serverless applications. It's a CLI tool. SAM Accelerate allows us to develop with the same levels of productivity whilst testing locally. So this is a big thing for developers. We like to test things local before we send out into the cloud. So we'll hopefully I have to test this out, but I think we're going to have better mocking capabilities through this feature. I haven't taken a full look at it just yet. Connect has personalization of the customer experience using Lex sentiment analysis in core flows. So this is pretty cool. It basically means that if you are using Amazon Connect to set up like a contact center, so you might have customers ring agents in your contact center, and usually you have an IVR at the front of that, and then in the IVR you might have routing options. A lot of people are putting chatbots in that today, and so you get a richer experience, and in the IVR, the chatbot, which would be Amazon Lex in this case, can actually answer some of the basic queries from visitors. Getting sentiment analysis off of that tells us whether the chatbot's working or not, and whether we might need to build out the chatbot capabilities or plug into one of the live agents that the brand might have in the contact center. So it's really cool to see. And then IoT Greengrass has upgraded its protocol support to support MQTT v5, which is a really nice feature if people are building IoT applications on Raspberry Pis, etc., and they're using Greengrass and they want to use the newest version of MQTT for communication back to AWS. So
also
I told
on
you
that
it'd
one,
be fast.
Matt. Yeah, on that one, I think that one's a big one for me as well, using the MQTT protocol, specifically with version 5. But the thing that's best in this release is that they're actually including the EMQX broker on the latest version of IoT Greengrass as well. So that's an open source broker, so an MQTT broker, which would be the equivalent of, like, say, RabbitMQ or something that we have on the cloud. You've now got essentially an MQTT broker on the IoT device using Greengrass. So that's a big one for me. Now you don't, because a lot of what I do in terms of writing the software that goes on that device is writing the brokering of messages between, a queue up in the cloud or whatnot. Now that's handled for you. You basically put your message to the broker and it'll hand it up to the queue. So that's a big win.
Awesome.
Nice. I'll stop sharing. Osoraptor, I saw your comments on AWS CodeStar, and you were wanting to know what it's like versus Devops Guru. I think on that one, we're actually going to have a deep dive on CodeStar in a few weeks. Talk about some of the capabilities within the code series of toolings. So I would say, watch us. Just keep subscribing, and we'll give you an update on what that looks like. CodeStar is really good for basic management of CI/CD pipeline and what you've got stored within code commit and doing code builds and all the other. It kind of glues together the code series of toolings really well. But the thing that I'd say is, there's a lot of stuff within this space that's really, really exciting, and we're going to have a nice deep dive on some of the newer things in some time in the future within the next month.
I know that people, there's a lot of people that know me and that I work directly with who are going to all boo me now, but a big way of managing CI/CD pipelines, I would suggest having a look at CDK pipelines, and I think we'll definitely look at that in a future episode. But for me, when it gets into more advanced development, then we move away from things like AWS CodeStar and start getting into developing our own pipelines through CDK. So that's what CDK was designed for, and that's just a throw out to all those people who know me, and I say that so many times.
Yeah, and just like Matt said, sort of let's just keep watching what we have, and we'd like to dive a little bit more into some of those services, because some of those services can feel, as a newcomer, a little. I mean, we give you the flexibility to build what you want, but to build something that's like all encompassing, there could be some work in that area. So yeah, I think that there could be some more work in that area. Let's just say that. So now Matt's done his announcements. I'm going to do one very briefly, which I think is going to tie very well into Murdy. So I'm going to just say about the integration of the AWS WellArchitected tool within AWS organizations. So for anybody that isn't aware, we have the WellArchitected framework. So there are 6 pillars in the WellArchitected framework. The 6th and the most recent one is the sustainability pillar. But the WellArchitected tool is a tool which effectively is a big series of questions and information gathering to determine, I guess, like the overall health of your application, and not just your application, but your operational practices, your business practice around building, developing, and supporting workloads. And those workloads, we're talking predominantly here about something in the cloud, but there's no reason you couldn't apply a well-architected tool to any specific workload. But it's set up to help you, get success for your application and build resiliency and cost optimization and all the good things that the cloud offers. I work with many customers around well-architected, and one of the questions that I get all the time is like, how do we keep and how do we set up like the ability for us to see the well-architected reviews that occur within my larger organization? So if you've got an organization that's got 100 teams, something like that, how do you set up a pyramid of permissions to enable me as somebody that's responsible for a whole organization to be able to look and see what's happening across my specific organization? Now, here we're talking about AWS organizations, but that's no different to what I'm talking about. Organizations is set up to do a hierarchy of your accounts and your account structure. And so this new feature enables you to be able to more easily share the access to the well-architected tools to specific interested parties within your organization. So at the moment, what I typically do with my customers is many of my customers will have one specific account, and that account might be a complete shell or a bare account. All well-architected reviews are created in that account and then shared into the sub-accounts. The sub-accounts are team-based accounts that are building workloads. They'll enter all their information. I'll do that with them. We'll work together. And then within the organization, your cloud operations team has visibility into the well-architected that has taken place within that operations team. Now, I think this is a really great feature. And how does it tie into today? Well, when it comes to well-architected, we do talk a lot about observability, resilience, how you react to incidences, how you are proactively looking at your environment. And I would say that, when I ask customers about what are you doing in regards to observability of your environment, that, they've got dashboards, they're monitoring logs, they're monitoring endpoints, all these sorts of things. But the thing that I see over and over is when I ask them the question, what happened the last time you had some sort of issue, an outage because of a code change or an infrastructure change or a specific service outage or something? Did you pick that up immediately? And often the answer is no. Like I didn't know. We have a whole bunch of dashboarding, but we didn't pick up exactly what happened at that point in time. So we still had to go down that path of troubleshooting what was happening in that environment. And that makes a perfect segue into Devops Guru, our AI ML powered observability platform. And over to you, Murdy.
Yes, yeah. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I can relate to this. One situation I was in a couple of years back. I was working for this large enterprise, and we were in this end of year party, right? So where we are having drinks, chit chatting, and also enjoying the atmosphere. So all of a sudden, I noticed some people started leaving the party. So, I just wanted to check, what was happening. So it seems there was some P1 incident. Those days people have very secure, safe, the operational teams having dedicated areas. So that means they can't log into those systems remotely. So they had to go back to the office and look at the system. It took pretty much, like, long story short, it took 5 hours to bring those services online, and also the weeks of effort doing the postmortem, what went wrong, how they could improve. So this is normal, people is getting called on a weekend or during a holiday. So these are the operational issues, and this is the where we are trying to create that operational excellence, right? So we're all part of that situation. So that's where the DevOps Guru comes into picture, where as applications are increasingly complex, like maintaining them, making sure that they are highly available, and also how we can reduce the time and effort spent on debugging, detecting, and diagnosing these operational issues. That's a huge area. AIOps is growing, and as part of the IDC survey, so 70% of the organizations are already looking into AIOps. And Amazon and AWS, we have a lot of operational experience in this space. So we came up with this AIOps service, which is Devops Guru, to help customers automatically detecting, and also not only detecting the operational issues, also providing that the relevance of metrics, and also providing that operational context with recommendations. So that's the power of DevOps Guru.
Excellent. And Murdy, I was going to say, this is what it sounds like. Hopefully that's coming through. So us TAMs get paged whenever there's something going wrong. So we would be leaving that party. But what I actually have found with customers in particular is they'll set up the alerting and alarming and the monitoring based on the metrics that they know. But the services are always expanding, and when you think of getting down to a particular service, let's just pick on RDS and Postgres, right? There might be some different things that you might want to monitor on RDS Postgres versus MySQL versus MS SQL. And generically they put this fit based on the problems that they've had on the past on top of to say this is our monitoring, this is what we care about. But then workloads can actually care about different things and be impacted in different ways. And then database technologies have different things to monitor as well. And so I've usually recommended to my customers to use Devops Guru as the catch-all on top of their existing monitoring. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, so definitely. So you're spot on, Matt, because traditionally, when we are looking at all these, CloudWatch logs, alarms, metrics, notification dashboards, you are only looking for what you already know. So what if you haven't configured something to catch? So that's a big, you only realize it when the incident happens in that space. So with the power of DevOps Guru, it's automatically putting that single pane of glass, and it's constantly like a watchdog monitoring your operations. So in that way, you don't need to have any configuration, but still you need to define the boundaries, which I'm going to cover that how you define the boundaries of applications, or using the cloud formation stack or across the account. So you just need to define the boundaries where DevOps Guru need to monitor, and it will automatically baseline, and like that undifferentiated heavy lifting can be taken off from the operations team, so they can focus more on even contributing to the code, and all the operational issues can be automatically detected, come up with the recommendations. So this is pretty much the power helps the operations team. Like as you said, the resources change, the infrastructure capacities will change. Like maintaining all these dashboards and alarms and configurations, it's really a heavy burden on the operations team. So that's where DevOps Guru helps them to make their life easy.
Yeah. No, that's cool to hear. So I know you've got a bit of a presentation on this. The things
Yeah, I
that
just
I'm
wanted
thinking
to,
about.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, I was just going to say the things that I'm really interested in is, DevOps Guru to me is going to be proactive. So I think the audience would love to understand how it knows that your infrastructure is running in a healthy state outside of error logs. So there's some smarts to it that I think would be of interest to people. Those black hole catch all type things that you can set up on the other side, where it's like you don't know what you don't know. I saw Paul put that into the chat. But it's like that catch all, like how does that work, and what can we do that if DevOps Guru notices something that was missed, like how do we bring that into the flow of like our current alarming infrastructure. What I might do though is, are you cool for me to add your screen up and we'll kind of talk through this?
Yeah.
Cool. And in the audience would be interested to hear about your favorite event where you might have been pulled out of something that you've got going on in the background to kind of fix a broken application, etc. If you've got interesting stories, let us know in the chat.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. So that's something. We also have a workshop dedicated to DevOps Guru, where participants, users can experience the power of DevOps Guru. So this is more serverless focused. So which I'm going to cover how that workshop is going to work, and I can demonstrate the dashboard. Basically, we inject this operational anomaly into the serverless application. But before that, I just wanted to, what we have discussed. We have applications, or mostly they are like distributed. Previously, we used to have these 3-tier applications. At least we had some control. You have web tier, application tier, and database. And you look at the system logs and the application logs. You come up with the alarms, like if CPU is more than 80%, or if the memory is exceeding, or application has got some the latency. So you could manually define all these alarms, and you had some control. But as applications are increasingly complex, and also when we look at the more microservices based architectures, so it's very hard. So you have this data coming from all these microservices and applications, and you have this metrics, logs, the traces, and you have to look at the configuration of these things. So that's where the AIOps is going to help, that reduce that noise, and bring that signal up. Because when you have a lot of an incident, there is an alarm fatigue. There's a lot of alarms and events are generated. You don't know what you're looking for. So definitely that some help in bringing that signal from all that noise, and also finding the anomaly from the regular operational behaviors. So that's where the DevOps Guru comes into the helps the operations team.
Excellent.
So
I can see the chat's going away. So
yeah, I know that when somebody talks about the certificates expiring, I've seen that happen before. I recently heard about a large enterprise customer having a certificate expire and somebody not knowing what to do, and they didn't have automation around that piece. So it was an extremely difficult task to backfigure something like that out. I'm sure we've all accidentally forgot to renew a SSL certificate. There's a couple of tools out there that can help you with that. I use like pretty much I exclusively use ACM to do that, and I get the warnings the certificate was able to be renewed or not renewed. I think that helps a lot, just skimming those emails as they come in. But yeah, I've seen people accidentally delete production databases. That was a really interesting one. Took them offline for a whole day, as part of DevOps Guru, once we get into the actual examples, you'll be able to see like detection of infrastructure change and how that can be picked up and detected automatically as well.
Cool. And by the way, Paul, there's a little bit of a weird static coming off the end of your audio. I've just done a test across everyone's audio. It seems to be coming from you. So
all you,
just
Paul.
double check your.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yep.
Yeah, so as Paul explained, so this is how the DevOps Guru works. So it is mainly focused on, at this stage, the session for today is the serverless, because DevOps Guru can work across containers, RDS. So yeah, so the logs, all these data stores coming from X-Ray, CloudTrail, CloudWatch, and RDS Performance Insight is all funneled. The data is funneled into DevOps Guru, and also we have the CloudFormation changes that also the data takes, because when you have issues, you also want to understand like what is the trigger. So that's where the infrastructure changes help you understand, like when was this triggered, what is the timeline, because you can have issue for a number of reasons, but is it something related to your recent deployment, or is it someone has changed the CloudFormation stack and added a resource or updated the capacity. So that's where DevOps Guru gets all this data and use those machine learnings, years of operational experience from Amazon.com and AWS, and it will just provide the insights so that on a single pane of glass. So basically, it will provide the whether it is reactive or proactive insight. So reactive insights is something is happening, that your lambda duration has increased or DynamoDB is throttling. And the proactive insights could be something like you have configured the high read capacity of the DynamoDB, but you are not utilizing over a number of weeks or months. So that helps you saying that, hey, you have over capacity here, but it's not, you're not utilizing using your regular operational patterns. So that is proactive insights. So it comes up with that single pane of glass where it will provide the insights, and it also provides the aggregated metrics and also the timeline, like when that issue happened, when you start seeing those anomalies, and also comes up with recommendations. So this is where the DevOps Guru can be helping operations teams. And you can also use some integrations with your regular like Ops Center or the PagerDuty using the SNS, so that the operations team can straight away get the notifications, and they can look into the recommendations and take that appropriate action, whether to validate what has been recommended and what is the appropriate action. So that is the pretty much nuts and bolts of DevOps Guru. And the good thing is, you don't need any machine learning expertise here. So the models are already inbuilt and well trained based on our experience. And so the only way you need the only thing you need to do is just enable DevOps Guru and define the boundaries, and start watching the insights and recommendations. So that's how
Nice.
it's simple.
We did have a question from the audience on, what's the difference between this and Splunk's machine learning, right? And I know a lot of enterprise use Splunk. It's a fantastic tool. It's going to be fairly similar in my understanding between the two ways that it works. The only thing is, I do see most enterprise kind of push specific metrics to Splunk rather than everything, because there's always a bit of a cost associated with transfer of data across networks, etc. Like usually Splunk's hosted, in another account somewhere or on premises. And so DevOps Guru is going to be good for your AWS workloads where everything's already captured. It can learn from the get-go of your workload launching, like what good looks like. And then, it will examine that for a period of time, and it'll go, okay, well, this is what it looks like in a standard flow. And then it'll detect all those different tiny little anomalies. If you're pushing everything to Splunk, I kind of expect that you get the same behavior with it as well. I just know that, like, due to cost constraints, at least on the TAM side, we usually see that the structure that's being sent to Splunk's very well defined.
Yeah, exactly, Matt. I just want to show the dashboard for DevOps Guru, just because when people are talking about different tools, just to get an idea what DevOps Guru. Is it the font is big enough, or you want me to?
I think let's zoom in maybe one more time. Yeah, I think that's pretty readable. Let us know in the chat if it's not.
I think that's pretty good.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
You can zoom out just one little bit, Murdy.
Yeah. So this is the DevOps Guru dashboard. So the way, if you want to just look at how you configure the, the boundaries. So as I was explaining, you can pretty much say, all account resources, or you can just use AWS tags, or you can define cloud formation tags, or even you can disable by selecting none. So in this, my case, just for demo purpose, I have selected all account resources. That means it's monitoring all the resources in my account. So that's the way you configure Devops Guru to start monitoring, as part of the observability of your resources. So the dashboard looks like, you have these, the health summary. So in my case, I have created a hypothetical scenario to, it's a serverless application where it has got, API gateway, Lambda function, and a DynamoDB. So DynamoDB, I have reduced the read capacity from 5 RCU to 1 and started pumping the load across API gateway. And within 10 minutes, I could see that system has become unhealthy, and it is showing that the total resources analyzed is 3. And you can see that, this my serverless stack is unhealthy, and there is issue with the serverless system. So if you look at the reactive insights here, so it has detected that DynamoDB read throttle events. There's an anomalous application behavior. So if you just dig it in, so you can see there is a high severity, there's an insight overview, and it also gives you the aggregated metrics. So normally when you have operational issue, it's a problem where going through all these issues, because you get the issues from your API gateway, from DynamoDB, from Lambda. It comes from all different resources. So in this case, Devops Guru has aggregated all that metrics, and it even tell you that it is the stack name, and it is also the coming from API gateway, or it's coming from DynamoDB. I'm just going to, yeah. So you can see that it is specifying which resource is triggering that error. So those are the aggregated metrics, and also it's giving the relevant events. So you can see that the insight has started, so that I did the cloud formation update to reduce the DynamoDB capacity. So this is the the very important information, because yes, that there's some anomalies happening from the operational point of view. There's incident, and getting all these errors, but what could be the cause? So at least because it is giving some idea on the cloud formation stack updates, it's saying that, okay, there was a change at 8:30 p.m. and they could be related to that, so that you can. So the recommendations, when you look at the recommendations, it's pretty much saying that there is an update happened to DynamoDB table. You better roll back that DynamoDB table update. So it's not going to do that rollback for you, but it is telling that, okay, this could be the possible reason. So that is leaving that final decision with the operational team it's pretty much, it is adding intelligence to your operations and guiding you through that, issue, that when you have the incident. So it is coming up with recommendations. So it's pretty much a single pane of glass. You can get the idea on your stack is unhealthy, and these are the aggregated metrics, and you also have relevant events, and also it comes with recommendations. So that's pretty much helps you identifying, not only identifying, also remediating those issues.
Excellent. We did have a couple of questions from the audience. So the first one was, how does this relate to an environment using Terraform? Like I'd say that you might configure Devops Guru through Terraform or CDK or CloudFormation initially, but once it's all set up and running, it's actually going to tie into your CloudWatch, CloudTrail type events, and your alerting that you might have set up through like Systems Manager, runbooks, etc. So it's kind of the post stack to infrastructure deployments or infrastructure refreshes. Anything to add to that, Murdy?
Yeah, so definitely it's a very good question. Yeah, so the support is limited to CloudFormation at this stage. But if you are using Terraform to define your infrastructure, you can always use AWS tags as part of your Terraform deployment. So if you use that AWS tag, so DevOps Guru just needs some way of creating that configuration, the boundaries. Okay, which resources I am monitoring. So if you are using Terraform, you can use that AWS tags. And if you're using CloudFormation, you can pretty much say that, this is the whole stack I want to monitor. Or you can even go to the extent of, okay, I want to monitor everything, this account, or even this at the organization level. So that's the definition of what DevOps Guru need to monitor, the configuration. But yes, as Matt said, so once the resources are being monitored, so you get this dashboard to understand what's happening with those, the reactive as well as the proactive insights.
Yeah, exactly. And we've shared a lab if people want to go through it. DevOps Guru is on the free tier, so reading so I don't get it wrong, 7,200 resource hours is on the free tier, and 10,000 DevOps Guru API calls per month for the first 3 months. And then after that, pricing is by resource, but it's generally 0.42 cents. So that's not $0.42, it's like 0.42 cents per resource per hour. So it's relatively cost effective, I think.
Yeah, this question comes up a lot, actually. People will ask me about like the cost and the price of all these types of things. And obviously, like, there's some calculation that you need to do to determine the cost of your environment, because it's gonna vary, right? And it always reminds me and thinks about like the old the system administrator, right? You got the system administrator. Most of the time, they kind of just like sitting there twiddling their thumbs, make sure things are operating, whatever, right? It's the fact that when something does go wrong, what is the cost to your business at that point in time, and does that cost begin to weigh itself up very well against the cost of implementing a service such as DevOps Guru? Because if your business goes down and you're down for, I don't know, 8 hours because something's gone wrong and you haven't realized what's happened, or another team has made a change and that shift change has happened and no one realized exactly what happened, diving through the logs, figuring out what's happened, it can take a long time. And I experienced that recently with a customer where something was changed and there was no customer impact, but there was an impact to the platform, and it took like hours, like absolutely hours and hours and hours to figure out what had gone wrong in that environment. Whereas something like DevOps Guru, it would have been looking and examining those resources, or in this case, specifically that stack, and it would have said, this thing was removed from that stack, or this thing was changed, this thing was throttled. And when Murdy will go back to the screen and show us like what is happening, it provides you recommendations. So it's not that it said, hey, something's wrong with Dynamo. Yeah, realize something's wrong with Dynamo, but it's actually saying that you're now experiencing 500 errors on API Gateway. Like, there's a problem there. We're going to coincide all of those events all the way back to a specific change that happened within your environment, and it can give you something to go and start looking at straight away. So, saving like 1 hour of troubleshooting could have dramatic cost implications to your organization. So the costing is like, turn it on, check it out, and then do some calculations around what it looks like in your environment.
Yeah, and it's pretty safe to play with at a very low cost if you just want to do some testing in your own account outside of work. Because I know a lot of us in this group like to have labs. The other thing is, Paul, I actually think this would have caught, a couple of weeks ago we were both doing stuff with DynamoDB and we're both getting throttles. I wonder if this would have actually caught the throttling from happening, right? Like, versus us having to spend an hour together. We're working on completely separate applications, but we had the same problem. It might have saved us like an hour or two of troubleshooting.
Yeah, I was loading a couple of billion records into Dynamo. People always wonder like what the performance will look like when you have billions of rows in Dynamo, and I can tell you it's like lightning fast. So I've built applications that can load something to load billions of rows into Dynamo and then just be able to query based on that key. It's like lightning fast. But yes, like going through that and figuring out what was wrong, it probably would have proactively told me that. And in fact, I've got DevOps Guru turned on in my account. I just didn't think to look at it.
Yeah, and the last thing that I was going to call out from the chat was how does this fit within DevSecOps, right? I think this tool fits in there with the recommendations fairly well. But I would also take a look at Code Guru as well, right? So
Yeah.
Code Guru is going to be fantastic for security problems that you might have in the way that you've written your code, not just that you might have optimizations that you can make to performance, etc., etc. Like Code Guru is going to come back and say, hey, I'd recommend using like this encryption library over the other one for these reasons. So these tools really align themselves fairly well to DevSecOps as a movement.
Yeah, have we done? We've definitely talked about Code Guru a few times. Did we ever do an actual demo on Code Guru?
I think we did a demo on the Code Guru profiler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we'll rehash that. I think that's quite a while ago now. I'd have to scroll back in the episode list.
Yeah. And also, Paul, you can combine Code Whisperer when you are doing Code Guru next time. So that's one of the service in preview.
Yes.
Yes. Who's seen that actually? Yeah, I didn't see that in the announcements, but that was a huge release this week.
Yeah.
Let me get a link. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe let's deviate for just a second, and Matt can talk about Code Whisperer, because I know this is something that Matt is quite a fan of and has tried it probably more than the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah, so it integrates with your IDE like VS Code, and it starts giving you recommendations. So yeah, it's pretty much like saves a lot of time on if you are doing the regular the coding. So yeah, it helps you with all those recommendations.
Yeah, that's right. So I know people might have used what are the two platforms? You've got GitHub Copilot, but you've also got is it Code 9? I can't remember the name of. I'm a big fan of this other one as well, so I do want to give it a mention because it's pretty cool. So just go versus Tab 9. I was close. So Tab 9's fantastic as well. Really good at giving you insights across multiple languages. Code Whisperer works in a similar way. So at the moment, it's in a preview, so you can actually sign up as a preview. It works with JetBrains IDEs, it works with VS Code. You'll get a key that you can feed into the AWS SDK plugin, and that will activate Code Whisperer if you sign up and are successful in getting access to the early preview. It's going to come up with code generation based on as you write code. It's going to make predictions around what might be next. One thing that it does really well is it does tell you where it's pulling the code from as well. So you've got a bit more trust that, hey, this is MIT licensed open source code versus, hey, this is something that Amazon's used like for training data that we've got internally as well, right? Because Code Whisperer was trained on repositories online, but it was also trained on the years of code and experience that we've got within Amazon as well, which is probably why we started with Python, Java, and JavaScript. But I do know that there will be other languages coming in fairly shortly that you can use Code Whisperer for as well. Anything to add to this?
I just quickly brought it up so people can see what it kind of looks like. So with Code Whisperer, you get looking at your comments and what you're doing, like examples of specific, like how to implement pieces of code, right? Like for anybody that's a developer, look, let's be honest, like people are going to go and like Google how to do this thing. They haven't done it before. They're going to look it up. You're going to copy and paste some sort of specific example from the doc site, and you're going to start from there until you become familiar with exactly the signature of those specific methods and what needs to happen there. Code Whisperer will help you do all of that and accelerate your like coding experience, but it also can do like security scans on your code as well. So again, all of these things that like tie into like that whole DevSecOps model, shifting the security and the quality of your code and the quality of your application, shifting that left. So I think it's going to be really interesting. We'll probably do a session where we can demonstrate that and see how it works in a real world scenario. And it's always fun to see that with a well prepared example. It'll probably be much more fun when the audience gives us a specific comment and see what that looks like.
And probably the things to call out as well is like these things aren't going to replace us as developers. Fortunately, Pre-Code Whisperer, I don't know what the stats are on Code Whisperer because it's like new and in beta, right? Like it's only just become available. But like I know with a lot of these code products, it was like really good if 3 or 4 out of 10 times it hit what you're trying to do next. And sometimes 1 out of every 10 times or something like that, it could actually predict multiple lines of code that you might need. So like if you needed to create an S3 bucket with CDK, it might predict like the whole 5 lines that might enable you to create that particular construct, which is cool. And the other thing is you still actually need to know about coding, because if you go like, write me an app, do these things for me, I want the button to be blue, and the button when it clicks needs to go to this particular route in my app, blah blah blah, you still have to be careful with what it's actually like suggesting you do, because all these AI services don't have the context of the business logic of what you're trying to do, and they're just trying to work off of like what you're telling it through your code and your comments, what you're trying to do next. And that's why it only does work like 3 or 4 times, out of 10. But when it does enhance your speed quite substantially as a developer, so you can build more faster, effectively. But you gotta be careful, like in accepting just like blind recommendations, or you might be writing a Yahtzee app versus rock paper scissors at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that context thing is important, right? Like everybody's used Stack Overflow. You're not just going to copy the very first thing that comes up. You've got to figure out the context, what it is, find the right snippet, work through all of those things. They're accelerators, and much better than saying like going back to the SDK and the docs and trying to like look and figure out all those things. Yes, that's going to be the most accurate and robust mechanism to build out your application. But when you want to save time and you've done it like 10 times in a row, who wants to like type as many rows as you have to, right? You want to start with something. And that's why we all have code snippets in our code. Oh, I know I've done that something very similar before. I'll copy that, paste it over there, and continue on.
Yeah, and it's kind of like an IntelliSense that's just expanded and improved more than anything in the way that I look at it. Preferred programming languages. Do we go down that rabbit hole?
Well, maybe we should. We'll go down that rabbit hole a little bit later. Let's go with Murdy all the way back to his example and check back that. And where he was.
I'll keep writing a response to that one. We might come back and play that on later.
Oh, Cold Fusion, Paul. Here we go. That's
no. Don't even go there. Don't even go there.
You'll be coming back to that one. I'll hand it back to you, Murdy. Sorry, we went down.
No, that's okay. No, I just wanted to show this screen where the workshop link you have shared. So I just wanted to share this. Can you share this screen?
Yep. Let me go this one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
cool.
This is the part of the workshop. This is where how the insights were generated. So like Paul and Matt were talking about the DynamoDB issue they had. It's very identical hypothetical scenario. We have simulated in this workshop where you have this API gateway. We are hitting with using the script, loading this API gateway with a lot of requests, and DynamoDB was throttling. So that's how all this CloudWatch, CloudTrail, the data stores, funneled into the Devops Guru. So the inside page I have showed you before. That's how it is being generated from Devops Guru. So it gives you the idea on this stack is this CloudFormation stack is unhealthy. That is a reactive insight, and it tells you what are those aggregated metrics. It shows you that API gateway is having 500 errors, and Lambda is having the latency issue. The response time is going certain number of milliseconds, and then DynamoDB is throttling. So these are the aggregated metrics it is showing, and also it is giving an idea on the timeline of events that CloudFormation stack was updated. This stack using that because we have reduced the read capacity from 5 to 1. So that's what this workshop is demonstrating, and it also gives you the recommendations. So so this is pretty much a very common kind of scenario where you have a lot of serverless components, whether defined by Terraform or CloudFormation stack, and you would like to understand the problems without need to have those configuration heavy lifting, like dashboards, CloudWatch, alarms, and also the 24/7 visualizations on these the events and the logs and metrics. So yeah, so it pretty much like tells you what's going on in that serverless stack. And yeah, so that's where as Matt said, you can enable it easily. There's no side effects of this, and generally you will have this non-functional testing where you simulate different errors automatically, and also use the full capacity load. So that if you enable Devops Guru in that environment, you pretty much see, based on your test cases, you can simulate these scenarios and see how Devops Guru is coming up with recommendations. So in that way, you can be more confident before implementing it in production. So yes, that's like the cost is pretty much like first 3 months as it's on the Devops Guru page. It's a number of the 70 to 100 hours are free, and you can easily use those hours and see how Devops Guru is coming up with these recommendations in your non-functional environment, and so that you can get the full benefit of this operational excellence.
Excellent, and I can see the chat's kind of a little bit distracted here on programming wars, but no, that's awesome, and I would highly encourage people to give that lab a go. I did post it above, so where is it?
We'll post it again because Murdy ran an awesome session in Sydney like 2.5 weeks ago or something like that, Murdy.
Yeah,
and it was like maybe like 50 or 60 people, something like that. Like the whole room was full. Everybody got involved. Everybody had it like a good time. The lab was easy to follow, and it really shows exactly, I think, what I said earlier, that and you said it, Murdy, right, when I made that comment, like, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah,
it's proactively looking at the environment, the changes that you're making for your environment, and picking those things up. And these are handy tools to have within your service environment to be able to look at what's happening. Everybody is constantly talking about AI, ML, and big data. Like we hear that absolutely all the time. Every customer is talking about it. What do we do with our sets of data, and how do we, take advantage of that? Whether it be sales data, financial data, whatever it might be, right? But again, like AI, ML is far greater than like, I don't know, personalization of your like e-commerce application. Here's where we're seeing like AI and ML, actively assist us in our day-to-day jobs, and taking like a burden off our shoulders. Yes, there's going to be areas where we're just going to have to go in there and figure out what went wrong, and that might be as simple as a deployment occurred at this point in time. Something happened at that point in time, and the advice from Devops Guru is roll back that deployment. It doesn't necessarily know what you did in the code or whatever. We might have to go and figure out exactly what we did in the code. But it's it's just very important to be able to like get to the root cause quicker.
Yeah, and also Aaron and I are part of the Builder Experience TFC, and Paul is also part of our group. Matt is there, so we can come and help you. If you think that from in your team, if you want to have this workshop dedicated for you, like if you have certain number of people, so we are happy to come and help you with running the workshop, either virtually or in person, based on the location. So yeah, so that's let us know, please. You have our contact details. Yes, because we also have work with the service teams closely. So for example, if when you enable Devops Guru, if you have certain requirements which you think that it would help you further, so you can always take it back to the service team and see how we can prioritize those things. So that's where we continuously focus on by working backwards from the customer requirements, also improving our the services.
If we went back to that stack, Murdy, and see that error that's come, that if we had that back up, if you were to log into the console and go to Dynamo, change that, we would see that change, right? So this is one of the things that we probably haven't gone into, like how quickly does Code Guru detect the changes, detect those anomalies? What happens with it? How does it know How do you know what it's specifically looking at? And like, you know, customers will ask, like, how can I like see these specific changes? Like, so in this example, in this workshop, like I know this specific workshop, right? What's happened is we've deployed a stack. That stack has like some API that's reading and writing something from DynamoDB. Then we go ahead and we redeploy that stack, but we make a change. And that change is we reduce the read or the write capacity units that are reserved for DynamoDB for this application. As soon as that happens and we put a bit of load on top of it, we see that our application now has 500 errors. So that's where you start to see that thing happen. Now, Devops Guru is not going to give you those insights within 10 seconds. The longer you leave it running, the more thoroughly it understands your environment and the anomalies that your environment's going to expect and see and changes over time. But like if you went ahead and made that change to your environment, you would see like relatively quickly that your environment now is not working. There's some alert that's come out. And if like, so I see now you've gone back to that DynamoDB table. So here's a table that's created within that specific lab. And I think, yeah, so I think you change to 1, I think, what it says. So there's, you know, there's practically nothing in this DynamoDB table. The thing is, if you don't provide enough, you know, capacity for the table, then you'll be throttled once you start to put it under load. So I think it's, yeah, because you're zoomed in, isn't it, right at the end, Modi, if you go on the, those.
Oh, the details?
Yeah, additional settings, I think.
Yeah, so I've changed the provision capacity to 1 from, so that's where you can see from the recommendation, you can see that drill into the DynamoDB, see, oh, okay, so this is showing it RC is 1. So that's where it recommendation helps you, like, you know, reduce that noise and, you know, this is the signal. This is what the core problem. So it is helping you straight away. Like, you know, you can go to DynamoDB and, oh, okay, why is this 1? So, you know, it's like you are going through that noise and going to that signal straight away.
Yep, and that's exactly right. And so, like, you know, as we mentioned, of course, you could in the console click edit and change that back up to 5. And maybe in like a time of panic, that might be like okay to do, right? Like maybe not, right? Whatever, right? But at least you can then go and say, oh, DynamoDB changed to 1. I can see something happen. I can see the CloudFormation. I can see the deployment. I'll look in my pipeline. Someone put a commit in the pipeline. That was to address like a cost concern or something. You could say, all right, well, we'll roll that back. We'll push that back out again. And then we'll go and talk to that team member about why they made that decision in the first place. But if that was happened on a different shift or by a different team or some piece of shared infrastructure, something, you know, getting to the core of that is where it takes all of that time there. In that specific lab, there's a CloudFormation stack that you can deploy all of that, so you can mess with it and change it and set up the loads. It's kind of fun, right?
So, yeah, exactly. So that's where you can go to the CloudFormation stack, and you can see that the stack is updated at you know, so 8:34. So based on the recommendation from the timeline it is giving, so you can match it. Okay, at 8:34. The CloudFormation stack was updated, so you can understand probably it was the regular deployment, or someone wanted to add a resource or reduce, you know, remove a resource or update the capacity. So you have all the information to make that informed decision on what has happened.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's you know, that's the main piece of it, like doing the correlation between a change, whether that be infrastructure, code, deployment, whatever it might be, to your outage that you've occurred. And that also might not necessarily relate to an outage. That just might relate to you're experiencing 500s on your API gateway, right? And then it will trace that all the way back and say, well, this DynamoDB is throttled. So there has been no change that you've done to introduce this issue. However, our recommendation is that you increase your throughput, provisioned concurrency for DynamoDB, and that might be a good way for you to say, oh yeah, I didn't realize that our application was now being hit harder than before, and that could be a good thing, right? Like if your application is being throttled, it could be because your customers are really, really happy and they're starting to onboard into your service, and that can give you the proactive insight to say, all right, let's go ahead and scale that up. We need to provide more, you know, read capacity for our DynamoDB tables or something like that.
Yeah. Also with the proactive insights, you can you know, look into the cost aspect. So a lot of times you over provision things, but you don't know what you have over provisioned, and you will be very hesitant to make those, especially when it is coming to reducing the capacity. You're always, little bit defensive, conservative. But with the DevOps Guru Proactive Insights, it clearly tells you, okay, this is the capacity available you haven't used. Would you like to, downsize it? So in that way, it will help you with that cost saving aspect as well.
Yep, absolutely. So we had a lot of questions. I know that Aaron, myself, and Matt have been busy typing a lot of requests there. Thanks so much for coming along, Murdy, and taking us through this today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we're looking to expand on that lab and build in some other additional scenarios. So, I'd love for the audience to get in touch with us if they think about other scenarios that might be interesting. That is specifically looking at serverless. But there's more pieces of the environment that's looking at. So there's some interesting things that will be coming out in this space as well. The more AI-based monitoring that we have, I think the better. So yeah, really thanks again, Murdy, for coming along. Any last comments or any last questions from anybody?
Well, the last thing is we're talking about monitors for real-time dashboards, right? But if you have your alerting set up quite thoroughly and you've got Devops Guru listening in the background, you kind of forego that old model where you have 20 giant TV monitors along the wall, and then every engineer has 2 monitors each, and they're just flipping screens all the time. So you do reduce your footprint needed to do monitoring.
So there we go.
Which is cool.
We tied that all the way back to the 6th pillar: sustainability and less carbon footprint.
Yeah.
So
also
I'll
you can use. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to add to what Matt was saying around one of the biggest things. So in implementing a DevOps environment, so not the practices and the tools, but the practices, not specifically the tools, is using what we call radiators. So having readily available information always available. So that's where having your DevOps monitoring dashboards and the like is a much better way of doing things than, sitting on the console, flicking between screens and stuff. So a lot of the environments that I work in for SaaS-based applications do have, 4 or 5 screens with different dashboards displaying the current operational status. And then it's just the individual dev who's, got their 2 screens running through new modules or whatever they're developing on the day. So, yeah. Go for it. What were you going to say, Murdy?
Yeah, so Matt, if you can show this slide, it can also integrate with your existing operational tools like, PagerDuty or Ops Genie. Slide. Can you show the slide, Matt?
Yep, it is up
Yeah.
now.
Okay. So it's pretty much using the simple notification service. You can always integrate with your existing operational things. Maybe you don't need to go through all the alarms and events. But yes, if you have a certain tool set for your organization, your Ops Center or PagerDuty, Ops Genie, so you can use those things and just integrate with the SNS. So in that way, it will nicely embed into your operational landscape.
Excellent. Well, I feel like next week maybe we need a conversation around sustainability, and I think I know the guy to go to for that. It got really interesting. I didn't think I would care that much about it. I care about it, but we started going into the types of CPUs, the types of cores and CPUs, the types of languages that you develop into, and by the end of that conversation I heard last week, I was kind of hooked. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And this justifies me going down the dangerous Rust path. So anyways, yeah.
I was just going to say, for those who were having the conversation around languages used and stuff, this also comes into sustainability and also the usage footprint. So efficiency in the actual language itself, which is other things that we can add to that discussion for next week.
Perfect. Well, I will say thank you once again for Murdy. It was an excellent session. I think the audience really enjoyed it. It was great to see everyone in there getting really actively involved in the conversation. I think Paul's had to drop for another meeting. I've got to go as well. So I'll say goodbye to everyone on the chat. And once again, thank you very much, Murdy.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thanks, Murdy.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.